Happy birthday, Michael, and hello, everyone else. I'm Scott Mills, and this is what first attracted me and brought me to Michael Soulé. This book came out as I was working as an intern at the National Wildlife Federation, having just come out of a master's program that insisted that if a person does conservation work, they can't possibly also do science. So that idea didn't seem to make much sense, and partly in response to that, I took this intern at the National Wildlife Federation in DC to figure out if that was true. But as I was there, this book of Michael's came out, and I read it from cover to cover and was entirely inspired by it. Wrote Michael, asked him if I could be his PhD student, and he took me on. When I arrived to work with him as a PhD student in Ann Arbor in 1988, he was single, recently single. I was recently single. So we got to know each other by drinking together a lot. He would have his tequila on Friday nights, I would have my beers, and we'd talk about all kinds of crazy, outlandish ideas. Michael would talk about things like this idea he had to connect from the Yellowstone to the Yukon. Totally outrageous idea that probably would never happen, but we talked a whole lot about it on Friday nights. The fact that we both come from recent breakups may have been the source of the title of our first publication together. And we had an awesome time. Michael was not terribly interested in being involved in my field project. I decided to study the effects of forest fragmentation in Northern California and Southern Oregon. Michael's words to me were to the effect of, "Forests creep me out," he said. Or maybe it was, "I don't like trees." But in any case, Michael was happy to let me do my field work on my own, but inspired me in so many ways, as he did for all of his students, to think big picture and to think about ways to bring together multiple ideas. He really emphasized a couple of big things. One is, he said that the more you can bring fields together, the bigger impact you'll have. And he correctly had his finger on the pulse of demography, genetics, field ecology, human dimensions as an important place to work. And this was an area that I enthusiastically embraced, and which really has carried me throughout my entire career. For the last 20 years, I've taught a class called Conservation of Wildlife Populations. It's an applied population ecology class, and really it's driven by the nexus of topics that Michael inspired me to take on as a graduate student. So what I'd like to do next is to just show you a couple of the slides that I use and have used literally for 20 years teaching this class. So 20 generations of students. I've always ended the class on a big picture note. So let me go over here to my computer and show you the slides that I use to end this class. This is the first quote from Michael from the Green and Yellow book. "Dealing with emotionally and ethically complex material often requires courage. It is natural to back away from non-scientific or messy matters, leaving such issues to journalists, ethics committees, popularists, and nature lovers. For example, there are probably conservation biologists who would be reluctant to lecture their students on how to love nature. In their defense, one could argue that loving nature is not a scientific subject, that ardor reveals subjectivity, and, above all, that a biologist is not an expert on loving nature. This is rubbish. Everyone knows that ardor and enthusiasm are inspiring, and that love of subject matter is infectious. Regarding the issue of expertise, no one has more expertise on loving nature than the professional naturalist or manager who has spent his or her career or lifetime studying and admiring plants and animals." So that's the first quote that I've shown 20 years worth of students in my final lecture. And then the next one is the one that I end the class with. and it's a book. It's one that that I also took from this same book by Michael, and I paraphrase it. It was in that book, but I end up dedicating my classes just as Michael dedicated this book to those who will come after, who will witness the worst and accomplish the most. So Michael, happy birthday. On behalf of your students who appreciate beyond words all you've done for us as students, for the field of conservation biology, and for the planet.